Good morning. In today's headlines, key decisions could be made today in a pair of cases involving former President Trump. Georgia's district attorney could reveal her cards against Trump, while a D.C. judge may signal when a trial in that case could start. Who won the first GOP debate? Polls show different candidates as the top performer. This while Robert F. Kennedy Jr. weighs in. Find out his critique. Could a hurricane hit Florida this week? Tropical storm Idalia is gathering strength and forecast to make landfall on Wednesday, possibly as a Category 2 storm. Ceiling fans come under scrutiny as the Biden administration eyes greater efficiency. Critics say the new proposals put small businesses in the line of fire. And there are still over 300 unaccounted for people following the deadly wildfires on Maui earlier this month. At the same time, an organization is helping to rescue orphaned pets to San Diego. Good morning. Welcome to NTD. I'm Kevin Hogan. Today is Monday, August 28th, and we're kicking things off with an update on former President Donald Trump. Charges against Trump in Fulton County, Georgia face a major test today, while a hearing in D.C. could play a key role in setting the date for one of the former president's trials. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the legal proceedings.
Through participation.
In Georgia, District Attorney Fani Willis will lay out the details of her anti-racketeering case against Trump, his chief of staff Mark Meadows, and 17 other co-defendants at a federal hearing Monday morning. It's the first time substantive arguments will be made in court about the 4 criminal cases brought against Trump this year. The hearing will center on Meadows' motion to move his case to federal court, but it could end up acting as a mini-trial that determines the future of Fulton County's case against the former president. Meadows is one of several defendants who have filed to move their cases from Georgia State Court, and Trump is expected to file a similar motion. Meadows is arguing that the charges against him in Georgia should be dismissed under a federal immunity claim. That is sometimes granted to those prosecuted or sued for alleged conduct done on behalf of the U.S. government or tied to their federal position. Over in Washington, Judge Tanya Chutkan will be holding a status hearing on Monday. Chutkan will consider dueling arguments by special counsel Jack Smith and Trump's defense team. The issue is the trial date over Trump's attempt to challenge the 2020 election results. Smith wants the trial to begin January 2nd. That's just 2 weeks before Iowa's First in the Nation caucuses, a contest that will serve as Trump's first big test in the 2024 primary race. The ex-president's team has asked for much more time and is proposing a date of April 2026. Trump is not expected to be at the hearing. His attorney, Alina Habba, told Fox News she's confident the proposed trial dates will be moved.
It's unrealistic, it's theatrics, and no judge is going to say that you can be on 2 trials at once in 2 different states.
Noting that there would likely be overlap with his other trials. If special counsel Smith gets his preferred trial date of January 2nd, the proceedings would begin just days before the 3rd anniversary of the breach of the U.S. Capitol. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Trump has managed to turn his surrender and mugshot into a major campaign haul. The former president has raked in over $7 million since his booking on Thursday, and his campaign set its highest single-day haul to date on Friday with over $4 million released. And now from politics to the forces of nature, Tropical Storm Idalia could strengthen into a hurricane on Monday, bringing high winds and storm surges to Cuba and Florida later this week. The storm has sustained winds of 60 miles per hour. It could reach Category 2 strength with 110 mile per hour winds when making landfall in Florida, which is forecast for Wednesday. The National Hurricane Center says Idalia could cause scattered flash and urban flooding along Florida's west coast, the Panhandle, and southern Georgia late Tuesday night through Wednesday. Governor Ron DeSantis declared a state of emergency for 33 Florida counties on Saturday. He said power company workers are preparing ahead of the storm and that over 1,000 members of the National Guard were mobilized with 2,400 high water vehicles and a dozen aircraft for rescue and recovery efforts.
The storms, of course, as we know, these things can wobble, so Floridians along our Gulf Coast should be vigilant, even if you're currently outside the cone, and indeed you could see impacts if you are in a place that's outside the cone.
3 U.S. Marines were killed in a helicopter crash in Australia yesterday. At least 8 were seriously wounded. The Osprey helicopter had 23 Marines on board. It went down during a joint military exercise. Here's what Colonel Cedric Leighton had to say about the crash.
As far as I know, the Marine Corps hasn't announced an operational stand-down of these aircraft yet, but what often happens is they will actually ground the fleet of aircraft. They will assess what had happened. Part of that will, of course, be the accident investigation. The other part is going to be, what kinds of conditions were there? Was there a weather issue, like was the case probably in Norway? But in this particular situation, we don't know enough yet if weather or anything else was an issue, if it was simply a mechanical failure.
Australian Defence Forces are assisting U.S. personnel at the crash site. The cause of Sunday's incident is under investigation. An Osprey helicopter was involved in 2 other deadly crashes later last year. The Hawaii Emergency Management Agency on Saturday briefly issued an evacuation order for West Maui due to brush fire. The order was in place for Anapui Loop in the Mahipuli, the agency said in a post on X, formerly known as Twitter. The order was subsequently lifted after firefighters stopped forward movement of the fire, the agency said in a follow-up post. The island of Maui was devastated earlier this month after the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than a century swept through the resort town of Lahaina, leaving 115 people dead and 338 missing. Search teams are still sifting through Lahaina's blackened ruins, although officials said on Friday that process was nearly complete. In other news, U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo is on a 4-day visit to China. Raimondo summarized the trip's mission as protect what we must and promote where we can. The visit, which ends Wednesday, comes as the Chinese regime struggles to save its faltering economy. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg tells us more.
Raimondo arrived in Beijing late Sunday and was greeted at the airport by the Director General of China's Commerce Ministry Li Feng and U.S. Ambassador Nick Burns. She is the 4th Biden cabinet official to visit Beijing in the past 3 months, after Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, and Climate Envoy John Kerry. The U.S. has been working with allies to block the Chinese regime's access to advanced semiconductors and plans to finalize sweeping export restrictions soon. Beijing, meanwhile, is restricting shipments from chipmaker Micron Technology and raided and fined U.S. firm Mintz Group $1.5 million for doing what it called unapproved statistical work. Raimondo emphasized she would tell Chinese officials the U.S. will not negotiate or compromise when it comes to national security, and that just because the U.S. invests at home doesn't mean it's looking to decouple from China's economy. She said stable relations between Washington and Beijing are profoundly important as she kicked off a meeting Monday with her counterpart, Chinese Commerce Minister Wang Wentao. The U.S. Commerce Department removed 27 Chinese entities from the unverified list ahead of Raimondo's trip, which restrict companies from receiving sensitive U.S. technology exports. The Commerce Secretary also wants to boost travel and tourism between the 2 countries. It's the first visit by a U.S. Commerce Secretary to China in 7 years. House Select China Committee Chair Mike Gallagher and other Republicans urged Raimondo to tighten export controls on the CCP ahead of her visit. Officials warn the Chinese regime has no intention of changing policies, such as forced technology transfers and state subsidies that led to current export controls. Raimondo will hold bilateral meetings with Chinese officials Monday and Tuesday in Beijing before heading to Shanghai. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Up next, conflicting polls on who won the debate and criticism against the participants. We bring you coverage of the GOP primary debate aftermath and a look ahead. 3M agrees to pay $6.5 million to settle anti-bribery charges from the SEC. It was accused of providing Chinese officials with overseas travel and shopping sprees to boost sales. Stay with us.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omega-3. omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puretang Omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puretang Green Vegetable Omega-3. Greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puretang.com to learn more.
Anyone who's ever sold a home can tell you it is really hard. That's why who you work with matters. Together with Homelight, we've helped thousands of people sell faster and for the best price.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We would like to help you maintain a healthy body and mind so that you have the strength to enjoy a productive and fulfilling life. We want to keep you informed so that you can make the best decisions to support your family. We want to offer you the best education so you can join us in building a positive future for humanity. We hope to inspire you with goodness and compassion, to nurture your heart and soul with love and kindness, and fill your spirit with positive things. We'd like to share the tastiest meals with you, because you are part of our family. We want to bring you the most interesting and exciting things so we can enjoy every single day together. Ganjing World, technology for humanity.
Welcome back. 3M has agreed to a $6.5 million settlement with the SEC. That's over charges that its Chinese subsidiary covertly sent Chinese officials on paid trips to the U.S. and Australia in efforts to boost company sales. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on the settlement.
The SEC said last week that 3M's wholly owned China unit arranged for Chinese healthcare officials overseas travel, sightseeing, and entertainment activities on the pretext that they were attending conferences or marketing activities from at least 2014 to 2018. At least one former 3M China marketing manager and several staff from the sales, marketing, and professional services departments were involved in the scheme. Those 3M China employees targeted influential officials working at state-owned Chinese entities with the aid of 2 Chinese travel agencies and created a fake itinerary to get approval from the company's compliance personnel, along with an alternative set of tourism activities near the event venue. The tourist destinations included Los Angeles, Nashville, Boston, Chicago, and Sydney. The official agenda was packed with educational events, while the alternative itinerary had primarily tourism activities. The SEC said 3M China paid nearly $1 million for 24 such trips and measured whether these payments were driving up sales, and that at least one employee from 3M's China unit was in charge of tracking post-trip sales to ensure they were consistent with 3M China's sales goals. The SEC says 3M improperly benefited at least $3.5 million in increased sales. It also paid a Chinese travel agency a total of $254,000 in 15 payments for vaguely termed marketing efforts, then improperly recorded the costs as legitimate business expenses. 3M agreed to pay the fine without admitting or denying the findings. The SEC says the company promptly self-reported its employees' misconduct after first learning about it in 2018 and fully cooperated with its investigation. The Minnesota-based company subsequently took corrective measures, including disciplining employees involved in the misconduct, terminating its relationship with Chinese travel agencies, and enhancing its internal controls environment and compliance program. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Now we're going to hear from a journalist who has been gathering information on the political front. Let's delve into the aftermath of the debate and what's on the schedule for this week. Jeff Louderback, a reporter for the Epoch Times, joins us live. Jeff, thanks for coming on the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Now that the first debate is behind us, we have some indication of who Americans thought won. A 538 poll had DeSantis as the top performer, whereas a poll for the New York Post showed Ramaswamy was who they picked. So now, what can you tell us about the aftermath of the debate?
Well, some would say that Donald Trump won because of the viewership with the interview with Tucker Carlson, but on the stage in Milwaukee, Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley is another person who picked up a lot of points. She had some followers who liked how she performed. Governor DeSantis also, and another person I thought did pretty well, but you're not hearing much about him, was Tim Scott, Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina.
Right. Well, we've definitely seen a lot of views for that interview that Trump had with Tucker Carlson. And now you reported on Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s town hall in Richmond, Virginia, after which he criticized Republicans on the debate stage, saying they are out of sync with the mood of the country. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, well, RFK Jr. was on a town hall tour of South Carolina, and then he made a stop in Richmond, Virginia, had a good turnout at that town hall. An hour later, went back and watched the debate, and he just feels he's running on a ticket where he's unifying the country, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and he just felt there was needless bickering going on, and he just believes in focusing on solutions and unifying the country, and that's what he meant by out of sync with the mood of the country, because he believes that people are fed up and they want solutions and not arguments.
Right, and you've done a lot of reporting on RFK Jr. What more can you tell us about his campaign?
Well, what I found interesting, last week at this time, I was in a hotel, I believe it was Florence, South Carolina. It was interesting because it was one city every day, town hall tour across South Carolina. What I found was his campaign is picking up a lot of enthusiasm, and a lot of people, I interviewed dozens of people who are supporters of his and were in attendance at the town halls. They're former Trump supporters. They voted for Trump in 2016 and or 2020. Some of them even worked on the Trump campaign and are now supporting or volunteering for the RFK Jr. campaign. A lot of them said that this campaign with RFK Jr. is reminding them of the 2016 Trump campaign.
That is very interesting that you point that out, because some people have said that RFK Jr. might be in the wrong primary. So now I want to know, what does the political schedule look like this week? Are there any big speeches or court appearances that are planned that might shake up the election landscape?
Well, I don't know about that, but I know about, I'm on the RFK Jr. beat, and he continues to focus to build momentum because his campaign is gaining momentum, where President Biden, obviously, with his, I don't know what you call it, performance or lack of connection in Hawaii, he continues to slip in popularity, and his mental fitness is in question. And the RFK Jr. campaign believes that it can keep picking up momentum. But what's interesting is the RFK Jr. himself refuses to comment or focus on President Biden's mental fitness or Hunter Biden's issues or President Trump's legal issues. He believes on focusing on the solutions. And again, that's what I found. That's the main observation I have from this town hall tour, that people like that. People want the focus on that.
Well, thank you for bringing that on-the-ground reporting to us so much. Jeff Louderback, a reporter for the Epoch Times. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just ahead, China's indebted Evergrande is back to trading in Hong Kong. How has it performed? What are the market implications following the collapse in the U.S.? We spoke to an expert in investment and macroeconomics. That ceiling fan above your head might take some of the bite off the summer heat, but is it environmentally friendly enough? The Biden administration doesn't think so. We'll have that coverage for you in just a moment.
Stay tuned to get 2 rolls of alien tape free. You wouldn't stick your mother-in-law on the wall, but you could with alien tape. It just sticks. Just peel and stick to make anything stay in place quick. Brick, pavers, marble, tile, plastic, even leather. Nothing works better than alien tape. You wouldn't stick your fishbowl on a moving car, but you could with alien tape. The secret is nano-stick technology that grabs and locks on to secure one side of the surface to the other. Alien tape secures in seconds, then twist, pull, and rinse to reuse. Call or go online to get your first roll of alien tape for just $19.99, plus shipping and processing. But to make this deal really stick, we'll give you 2 more rolls absolutely free. You get 3 rolls of alien tape for one low price. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-490-1364 or go to tryalientape.com. So call 1-800-490-1364 or order online at tryalientape.com.
Hi everyone watching at home. We're here to remind you that if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, listen up. We have live agents available right now to answer your questions and tell you how much your case is potentially worth. Hi, I'm Gina Bellich, here with spokesman and TV personality Tom Mustin with us in the Help Center. So Tom, phones are really busy over there. Tell us what kind of calls you're seeing.
Well, Gina, first off, thank you for having me here in the call center with you. We always enjoy talking to the viewers and getting folks the compensation that they deserve. You know, we're seeing calls about all kinds of accidents, but the most common by far has been car accidents. So if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, give us a call right now. You'll speak with a live person. They'll answer any questions you have and tell you if you have a case and how much your case is potentially worth.
Thanks, Tom. All right, folks at home, you heard it. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now.
BlackRock and PIMCO, an American investment firm, invested in Evergrande at one point, and following the news, the Senate discussed the risks of China's debt crisis at a hearing, but no one there asked if the government, as in you, the taxpayers, would bail out Wall Street in the event of more bankruptcies of companies in China. I wanted to learn more about the impacts of Evergrande's collapse and what this reveals about the ruling Chinese Communist Party, or CCP. So I spoke with an expert in investments and macroeconomics. Joining me now is James Gorey, author of The China Crisis, Epoch Times contributor, and he also runs the blog The Banana Republican. Thank you so much for your time today, James. What does Evergrande's bankruptcy mean for Americans?
What it means for Americans is that there's a loss of demand from China, from America to China. So Evergrande's collapse is emblematic of the lack of demand within the Chinese economy, the inability of the Chinese economy to really run itself. And so from America's perspective, look, we're they're one of their top exporters and importers, and they export to us top ways. And the fact is that China is seeing itself collapse, and that impacts America's ability to impact China because there's less leverage there, and we're importing less from China. They're actually below Mexico and Canada now in terms of who we import from.
So what's symbolic about Evergrande's failure?
Well, look, the China miracle, the Beijing miracle, was based largely on development. They were largely an agrarian country, and the Evergrande failure is emblematic of the fact that they've relied on development and overdevelopment for 30% of their economy. Now that that's collapsing, now that that facade is being revealed by the slower demand and the lack of growth internally and externally, China is seeing deflation. They're seeing less demand, less productivity, and prices are falling.
So in your article, you wrote that the collapse was due to foolish policies by the CCP. Can you elaborate on this?
Sure. You know, the economic demand for productivity, you make decisions on where to build, what to build, and when to build it typically based on economic factors. But in China, it's much more of a political factor, you know, keeping political party bosses happy, spreading the wealth around, building projects that don't need to be built, funding them with debt that never gets repaid, using the bank, the People's Bank of China, the Central Bank of China, to just roll over debt. So they're building projects to make money based on loans that are going to never be repaid. And after a while, you can only do that so many times. The economy can only sustain that so much because that debt has to go somewhere. And again, those buildings, those cities that are built with no one in them, that's a waste of capital, a waste of labor, and they're not being used. It's a drain on the economy. It's not productive economic activity.
Is there any insight that we can glean into the CCP based on Evergrande's failure?
Sure. The CCP is not an economic oriented growth machine or growth organization. It's a political party designed the sole goal of keeping power. So the CCP's goal is to hold on to power. One way of holding on to power was allowing economic growth to occur organically. Another way of holding on to power was to make sure employment was full. And there wasn't enough consumer demand to do that, so they looked to development and overdevelopment as a way to keep people employed and make a lot of money. The CCP is not an organization with classic economic liberalism and analytics. They're ultimately about power and about hold on that power as much as they can any way they can.
Right, and some of the repercussions for artificially increasing productivity here. James Gorey, blogger and author, it was really great speaking with you.
Thank you, Kevin. Pleasure.
And now some short headlines from around the world. Russian investigators said yesterday that genetic tests confirmed mercenary leader Yevgeny Prigozhin was among the 10 people killed in a plane crash last week. There had been some speculation about whether the Wagner chief had really been on the doomed flight. The exact cause of the incident is yet to be determined. In Romania, at least 2 people are dead and around 60 others injured after a devastating twin explosion at a Romanian fueling station near the capital Bucharest over the weekend. Most of the injured were people from the services who intervened. Several patients were airlifted to hospitals in Germany and other countries. Today, Japan called harassing phone calls from China extremely regrettable. That's over the release of treated radioactive water from the Fukushima nuclear power plant. China strongly opposes the move and has banned all aquatic product imports from Japan. China, however, has been discharging treated radioactive wastewater into the oceans for decades. The International Atomic Energy Agency has said the discharged water was well within safe limits. And just ahead, you try to keep things simple going for the ceiling fan instead of an AC. But the Biden administration is now saying even those fans waste too much energy, causing pollution. And while rent increases across major U.S. cities are cooling, in the Big Apple, the cost is sky high and rising. We hear how New Yorkers are responding to private market forces and landlord-friendly moves by the city when we come back.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
It's all good, baby.
Is it really all good?
If you love me enough to routinely test your handyman skills, not to mention the strength of your marriage, then of course you'll visit nhtsa.gov/therightseat to make sure I'm in the right car seat.
Welcome back. A popular item for cooling things down finds itself in the hot seat. NTD's Daniel Monahan has the story on the Biden administration's proposed new restrictions on ceiling fans.
The Department of Energy has come up with some new rules that would impose energy efficiency standards on ceiling fans. The move follows similar restrictions unveiled against other household appliances like gas stoves and generators. The agency estimates that consumers could save around $4 per year with its new guidelines, while manufacturers may have to shell out about $87 million annually in increased equipment costs. The DOE's ban on gas stoves also projects meager savings for consumers, a figure recently updated to an even lower amount. The Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers says the original proposal to save consumers 13 cents per month in utility costs has been revised to just 9 cents per month. At that figure, the projected savings will come to just about $1 a year. Republicans from the House Committee on Small Business are criticizing the proposal, highlighting the harms it would have on small businesses in the ceiling fan industry. They say the rule would force many small business fan manufacturers to redesign their products and could put between 10 and 30% of them out of business altogether. The DOE says the proposed standards wouldn't take effect until 2028. And would give people more energy-efficient options to choose from while substantially reducing air pollution. Around 85 million American households use at least one ceiling fan, with a quarter using 4 or more. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Now we're going to look at rent prices in U.S. cities. In a little over half of the 100 largest cities in the country, rent is still higher than last year. Rent platform Jumper found that in these cities, rent prices are not going up as fast, but they aren't going down. And in the Big Apple, Mayor Eric Adams has acknowledged tenants are suffering, but he also pointed out that landlords are too, and that is viewed as an indirect suggestion that certain rents should be raised. So I took a trip to investigate this to find out how this trend is playing out in NYC. Rent in New York City is hitting record levels, and it's only expected to go up. Right now, the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan is about $4,300. And the Rent Guidelines Board, appointed by the mayor, recently increased rent for over 1 million rent-stabilized apartments. We're going to learn more about this and how tenants in the unregulated private market are responding. We're joined by Sam Goldberg, tenant attorney, and Sam, it's great to have you with us today.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Can you give us the specifics on the rent increase of the rent-stabilized housing in June in New York City?
Absolutely. So as of right now, if you sign a one-year renewal lease as a rent-stabilized tenant, it's a 3% increase. If you enter into a 2-year lease, the first year is 2.75%, and the second year is 3.2%.
So Sam, this is the second year in a row that this has happened. Now, is this sustainable?
So the cost of living in NYC right now is skyrocketing, and due to that, the landlords are having a lot of trouble sustaining their buildings because of all the new expenses. But I believe it's unfair for the landlords to expect the tenants to have to pay for their burdens. If they continue to raise the rents on the tenants and the tenants are unable to afford living in New York City, that's going to be an even bigger problem because all of the apartments will be empty. People will not be able to live here. I think what should be happening right now is the city should step in. They should be giving some incentives to the landlords for allowing tenants to live there at a reasonable rate.
It's definitely a two-sided issue here. I mean, of course, some housing advocates are saying that these rent increases are maybe even driving tenants out of their apartments and then leaving them in precarity. That's not a situation that you want to be in, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, people in New York City only make so much money. And, living here is very expensive, and, some people don't make enough money. And even as a rent-stabilized tenant now, it used to be if you were rent-stabilized, the rent was very low, and that was helpful. But nowadays, even as a rent-stabilized tenant, we're talking in the thousands and thousands of dollars. It could be $3,000, $4,000 a rent-stabilized tenant. So yeah, it's very difficult for tenants to sustain, their rent every month.
And these rent-stabilized tenants, they're immigrants, they're sometimes senior citizens. These people are on fixed income, so a 3% increase, what's that, like $90 a month for a cheap apartment? That could be a lot.
Absolutely. If your rent is $3,000 a month, they raise it 3%, that's $90 extra a month, $1,000 a year. And then think about it this way, then when the Rent Guidelines Board does another vote, it's another percentage on top of the previous percentage. So it's a constant hike, and yeah, it's going to drive people out of their apartments.
What can you tell us about tenants more broadly in New York City? What are they telling you?
I've heard from a lot of tenants that New York City is very expensive. Again, the apartments are small. I've heard a lot of people are actually trying to go over to New Jersey. They could commute into the city. They can get a bigger apartment for cheaper rent.
That is interesting. Well, tenant attorney Sam Goldberg, thank you. And we're going to turn to some residents in New York City and see how they're faring.
You make it work. It's definitely tough. I think there's maybe this thing like the New York hustle or whatever, where everybody's working 2 jobs. I'm working 3. You just make it work, you make it happen, but it's tough sometimes.
Wow, 3 jobs, that's impressive. Have you had to make any lifestyle changes to keep up with the increased rent?
I mean, you know, shopping for groceries more effectively, you know, maybe drinking a little bit less. But that's probably good for me. I definitely see as many shows as I used to, so that's nothing huge, but you have to think about what you're buying a little bit more.
The speed of my salary raising can never catch up with the speed of inflation. I think it's a little bit too high.
So what have you done in order to keep yourself in an apartment?
I just go to work, earn my salary, and pay my rent. That's it.
Much more. I mean, I moved to New York last summer, and I thought it was high then, like it was supposed to be at an all-time high. And I'm looking again this time, and I feel like it's gone even higher. So, yeah.
I hope you find a place.
No, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. As the nation grapples with post-pandemic mental health concerns, some cities are responding to crises in innovative new ways.
Some larger American cities are choosing to replace mental health response teams that include police officers with clinicians and paramedics. 14 cities, including New York, Seattle, Denver, and Houston, have adopted this strategy. Proponents say it is more effective in helping connect patients with services instead of just taking them to an emergency room.
So we're very good at sending people to emergency rooms. Any unit can do that. What Health One can do, our co-responder program can do, is send people to homeless shelters, to clinics, to outpatient-based programs, to sobering, back to their house if that's where they need to get. We have a lot of tools at our disposal for that our operations members don't have.
These alternate response teams also focus on de-escalating situations with people in crisis.
Another one might be de-escalation and crisis intervention. So that requires really 2 things that often operations doesn't have: a large amount of time and specialized knowledge and training. So our folks are very good at that. They are very proficient in de-escalating clients who are in behavioral or emotional crisis, and they have the time to spend. If that takes 2 hours, they can spend 2 hours. An engine or an aid car can't spend that time. They have to get back in service.
However, detractors are concerned about possible violence in the absence of armed police during these procedures. A Stanford University study found that petty crime reports fell by 1/3, and violent crime stayed steady in the early stages of Denver's mental health response program. It also eases the burden on hospitals. In New York, social workers and paramedics in their program resolve about half their 911 calls by talking to people or taking them to social service or community health centers, rather than the hospitals where armed officers have traditionally brought people in crisis. New York and other cities are considering plans to expand the program.
Coming up, Fed officials are debating whether to raise rates again. NTD Business host Don Ma brings us the latest.
One in 5 children worldwide are faced with the reality of living without food. No family dinners, no special treats, no full bellies. All around the world, parents are struggling to feed their children. Toddlers are suffering from acute malnutrition, which stunts their growth. Kids are forced to drop out of school so they can help support their families. COVID, conflict, inflation, and climate have ignited the worst famine in our lifetime. And we're fed up. Fed up with the fact that hunger robs children of their childhood. Fed up with the lack of progress. Fed up with the injustice. Help us brighten the lives of children all over the world by visiting getfedupnow.org. For as little as $10 a month, you can join Save the Children as we support children and families in desperate need of our help. Now is the time to get fed up and give back. When you join the cause, your $10 monthly donation can help communities in need of life-saving treatments and nutrients. Prevent children from dropping out of school. Support our work with communities and governments to help children go from short-term surviving to long-term thriving. And now, thanks to special government grants, every dollar you give before December 31st can multiply up to 10 times the impact. That means more food, water, medicine, and help for kids around the world. You'll also receive a free tote bag to share your support for children in need. Childhood without food is unimaginable. Get fed up. Call us now or visit getfedupnow.org today.
Welcome back. New interest rate hikes are on the table again. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell called for more vigilance in the fight against inflation at the Kansas City Fed's annual retreat. Here to discuss this is NTD Business host Don Ma. Don, thanks for making the time today.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin.
So Fed Chair Jerome Powell said that he's going to hint at more bad news for borrowers at the Jackson Hole Summit on Friday. Can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, sure. You know, the market has been hoping for a long time now that the Fed will start cutting interest rates soon. But, you know, it seems like Powell said that additional interest rate hikes are still on the table, and rates could remain elevated for longer than expected. And that's bad news for anyone who's in need of credit right now. So Powell said this at the highly anticipated speech at the annual economic symposium in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So basically Powell is saying that inflation still too high, even though it has come down from its peak. He says that he needs to sort of feel confident that inflation is moving substantially down toward the Federal Reserve's target.
Yeah, and we're seeing some of those ripple effects of those high interest rates. So is there a risk that inflation will not come down to the Fed's target?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's definitely a risk. The Fed wants inflation to come down to 2%. That's their target. The Federal Reserve wants to slow down the economy to achieve that. And if that happens, I mean, we're definitely going to feel the impact. We're sort of feeling the impacts now already. But, you know, broadly speaking, it seems like the economy is not going in the direction that Powell wants. In fact, economic growth in the second quarter picked up from the prior 3-month period. And now the Atlanta Fed is estimating growth will accelerate even more in the third quarter. And this is probably exactly the reason why Powell said that restrictive monetary policy may be here to stay for longer.
Well, hopefully that's a good outlook. So do you have anything else for us, Don?
Sure. Just a quick update. First, on the tech giant 3M, the company is close to agreeing to a $5 billion settlement over defective earplug products. According to Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal, the earplugs failed to protect thousands of veterans from hearing loss. So the case has become the largest mass tort in U.S. history with more than 300,000 claims. But besides that, a bit of good news for home buyers, it seems. Zillow Home Loans is rolling out a new 1% down payment program. Through the plan, eligible buyers only have to pay 1% down, and Zillow pays an additional 2%, bringing the total to 3%. That's typically the minimum payment required for a home loan. The offer came last week when mortgage rates hit their highest level in 22 years. But the program currently is only available to buyers in Arizona. And one more update, and it's going to be on the car market. Chinese EV car maker and electronics component provider BYD has bought U.S. company Jabil's mobility business, which is located in China. The over $2 billion sale gives BYD a wider consumer base, a bigger portfolio, and more components. So BYD stock actually rose more than 2% after the sale was announced. Yeah, that's all from me today, Kevin.
And hearing is just so important, and good thing that those veterans are getting some compensation there. So Don, host of NTD Business, I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
In August 1963, 250,000 people turned out for the March on Washington. 60 years later, the event is remembered and celebrated. Not only people, but pets in Maui also lost their homes after the fires. We see how some orphaned pups are finding new homes and new hope after the break.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade small batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Anyone who's ever sold a home can tell you it is really hard. That's why who you work with matters. Together with HomeLight, we've helped thousands of people sell faster and for the best price.
It's good to have you back with us. The recent 60th anniversary of the March on Washington was celebrated at the Lincoln Memorial over the weekend. Participants in the event, like Reverend Al Sharpton and others, said this was not organized to commemorate the March on Washington. Instead, they intended as a continuation of the tenets outlined in Dr. Martin Luther King's iconic I Have a Dream speech. The original crowd in 1963 numbered around 250,000 people. The 1963 march played an important role in getting legislation changes for both civil and voting rights in America. And following the deadly wildfires on Maui earlier this month, orphaned pets will be up for adoption. Rescuers have evacuated over a dozen of them to San Diego. Here's the story.
20 orphaned pets will be up for adoption in San Diego after animal rescuers transported them from the devastation of the Maui wildfires. The Helen Woodward Animal Center has helped arrange the evacuation to ease the room in shelters of the Hawaii island.
Yes, so we're extremely excited to be bringing in a number of rescue animals from the island of Maui. We're actually working with the Hawaii Animal Rescue Foundation on the island of Maui. And, you know, we've been wanting to help after the devastation of the Maui fires.
More than 100 people were killed in the wildfires that tore through Maui. It was the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than 100 years. Over 300 people are still unaccounted for.
And one of the things we know that they're in desperate need of all the time is space and clearing out their shelters. And now more than ever, it's extremely crucial because the people in Maui lost their homes and they are having to rebuild from scratch, and they don't have any place to put their pets and their animals. So they are looking towards the shelters.
Members of the Hawaii Animal Rescue Foundation on Maui have been trying to find lost pets and provide comfort and supplies to those in need. Alaska Airlines helped fly the pets to San Diego. The newly arrived pets will be available for adoption over the next few weeks after they clear their medical checks. Those interested in adopting can visit animalcenter.org.
Heartwarming. And that's all for today's program. We'd love to hear from you at goodmorning@ntd.com. So shoot us an email if you'd like. Thanks for watching. I'm Kevin Hogan.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.